Okay, look, it's really late, so you're gonna have to ignore the dog snoring next to me. Okay, I'm gonna try not to wake Martha up while I talk about this really, really important election that happened today in Miami, Florida. And you might have heard some folks talking about how this is a really big win for the Democratic Party because tonight voters handed the Democrats a decisive victory as they flipped the Miami mayoral seat from Republican to Democrat. Headlines are like, oh yeah, this is showing that Democrats are building momentum ahead of the midterms. This is showing which way the wind is blowing. This is not good news for Republicans. And this was not the only loss for Republicans today, and I'll probably talk about that in the next video. But in Miami, Florida, the Democratic candidate Eileen Higgins is projected to be the winner, and not by a small margin. So at the point folks started calling it, Higgins had received 59% of the vote, and votes were still being counted. And the Trump-backed MAGA Republican Emilio Gonzalez had lost bigly. Yes, absolutely, it is noteworthy. It's a news story in and of itself that Democrats flipped this seat. Like, technically, it's nonpartisan, but these folks are affiliated with certain parties, and Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump endorsed one candidate, and like Pete Buttigieg endorsed the other one. Which one won? Not Trump's guy, not Trump's guy. I could come in here now with a whole I told you so about how elections are still free and fair. Yep, voter suppression still happens. Gerrymandering still happens. There are all kinds of techniques that Republicans use to cheat by disenfranchising voters, which is why we have to turn out in huge numbers, because we know that massive turnout can overcome a lot of the techniques that Republicans use to try to secure themselves a victory by denying you your right to vote, right? We all have to show up. The reason Republicans are trying so hard to gerrymander everywhere from Texas to Indiana, the reason that they're always up to hinky shit, like trying to make it as difficult as possible for you to register to vote, to get to a polling place, the reason they're always trying to kick people off the voter rolls, the reason they try to make it as difficult as possible for you to vote is because when the people get to cast their vote and have their vote counted, Republicans don't win. It's not that elections are fixed. Elections are not fixed. There is no magic zapping of the votes, and Democrats can and do win a lot, all over the place. Do you remember, like, just on November 5th, we had a historic blue wave. Sorry, my 17-year-old is making a late night snack in the kitchen, and he's really loud. Don't wake up, Martha. Shh, she's sleeping. But there's a much bigger lesson here. There is a much bigger lesson. Yes, all around the country, we are watching districts that swung hard for Donald Trump swinging back the other way. We are watching Democratic districts go even further blue. We are seeing Democrats gain percentage points pretty much across the board. I think the one exception we've had so far is Long Island. What the fuck are you guys doing over there, Long Island? And yes, it's really noteworthy that Higgins' campaign ran on local issues like affordable housing, but also pushing back against Donald Trump's immigration raids and ICE. Yep, super, super important to acknowledge that, but there is something bigger going on here. Remember the last time you heard about Miami's mayor in the news? Do you remember the last time you heard about Miami City Council in the news? I remember because y'all were all up in my comments. People were freaking out all over the internet because earlier this year, way back in the summer, way back in June, Miami's Republican mayor, who was term limited, and the city council worked together to decide to just cancel the 2025 elections and push them into 2026 so that the mayor could hold on to power. And when that happened, people were freaking the fuck out. I had so many folks, like, this happened not long after I made a video where I said, Donald Trump is not going to cancel elections. I had a lot of people in my comments in May in particular who are saying, oh, there's not going to be any midterms. Donald Trump's just going to cancel the midterm elections. And I was like, that's not something that can happen. Elections are controlled by the states, not by the president, not by the federal government, but also that's not something that's likely to happen. Autocrats almost never come in and cancel elections. What they do is they cheat. They engage in voter suppression, disenfranchising voters, finding excuses to cast out votes, throw away votes. Also, what autocrats love to do is when there is a free and fair election, they love to say, oh no, that's not the real results. Those results are fake. Those results are not accurate, and so I'm going to declare my guy or myself the winner. Donald Trump has been laying the groundwork since at least 2015 to undermine people's belief in free and fair elections. That's why I push so hard against Blue Anon. Anytime we see somebody who's like, no, 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 you can't trust the outcome of the election, you can't trust the vote count. That is something that autocrats say. That is something that would-be dictators say, because they are trying to delegitimize your vote. They're trying to deny you your vote by making people mistrust the accurate results, disbelieve the accurate results. Then they can come in and say, like, no, you can't trust that. You have to trust me. You have to trust me, dear leader. I will tell you how the election went, and I will decide who the winner was of that election. This is what autocrats do all over the place. They don't just come in and say no elections, because they know that that will cause the people to revolt. And it's all about that creeping authoritarianism, right? It's all about that, like, legitimizing themselves and having these kind of semblances, these kind of rituals that people still undertake, like having an election, but then throwing away the results. The people go through the motions, but they're not actually able to access that right because they don't get their vote counted. The autocrat decides to go ahead and hold on to power, or to put his cronies in power around him. So when people were reading this Miami story from back in June and were like, see, Angela, we told you this is what's going to happen. Elections are going to get canceled. You've been telling us that that's not true, but look at Miami. Look at Miami. This is what's going to happen all over the country. This is just the beginning of elections being canceled everywhere. And I was like, take a deep fucking breath. Take a deep breath. Please don't make me get this scoldy mom voice on. Like, that's not what's going to happen. You need to wait a second and see how this is going to play out, because I guarantee you this election is not going to be stopped. It's illegal. It's so illegal that even Ron DeSantis and the Attorney General for Florida, James Oatmeyer, were like, no, you can't do this. But people were still in my comments being like, no, see, elections are going to get canceled everywhere. This is terrible. This is the end of democracy. We're never going to be able to vote again. And I was like, let's not catastrophize. Well, very, very quickly, a lawsuit was filed, and a judge obviously said, no, y'all can't just decide to unilaterally cancel elections to hold on to power, to keep yourself installed as mayor for another year. You can't do that. And so what happened today? There was an election. The democratic process worked. The seat was flipped from Republican to Democrat. The Democratic candidate was elected because people got to vote and have their votes counted. I now have 2 snoring dogs behind me. Sorry, it's a little bit loud. So yes, absolutely, we should celebrate this victory. Lots of victories today to celebrate. In fact, multiple wins for Democrats. But the greater lesson here is that democracy is still happening. Democracy is not dead. Your vote will be counted. We must all turn up and vote in every election. We are super voters now. It doesn't matter if it's just for your local community college levy. It doesn't matter if it's for your parks levy. It doesn't matter if it's for your, local city council, or if it's a big race. Show up and vote. Your vote matters. It's needed now more than ever. You have to exercise your right to vote if you want to maintain it. The other lesson here is stop freaking out about things that are not worth freaking out about. They want you to be in full panic mode. They want you to think this is the end of everything. It's the apocalypse. They can do every terrible thing that they want, and they can just grind everything to a halt. They can just suddenly declare elections aren't happening, right? Don't give them that kind of power. They've never had that kind of power. Stop catastrophizing. They try to do something terrible. Don't be like, oh my gosh, they've now canceled elections. Be like, are you fucking kidding me? You do not get to cancel elections. We defend democratic norms. We defend our right to vote. We defend free and fair elections. If they try to pull hinky shit like cancel the mayoral race in Miami, we get so outraged, because that is such an extreme, unbelievable, un-American thing for them to be doing. That's how we defend democratic norms. We are outraged when they behave this way, and we move vigorously to defend those rights. Please understand, we are under an awful lot of threats right now. Our democracy is under threat, but it still functions. We still have the right to vote. We still have free and fair elections. Even with voter suppression, our voice can be heard at the ballot box. But I really want to encourage you to take a moment and think about how much time you spent freaking out, panicking over this story back in June, and how it turned out today. What's the takeaway there for all of us?